Well, hello there. Thank you for tuning in today to the Veteran Show. We are live and we have a wonderful guest today, just like we do each episode. So, we bring heroes who are doing wonderful things in their community, in their businesses. And today is no different. We have a wonderful guest, and you'll meet him in just a few minutes or a minute. Probably not even a couple of minutes. I am your host. I'm Shelly Harrison, and I'm the co-director for the Orange County and Inland Empire chapters of the National Veterans Chamber of Commerce. And while you're watching, we would love your questions. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'd love to hear from you. We can answer your questions live if you have a particular question for our guest. So what I'd like to do is I want to thank, first of all, Mr. Joseph Molina, who is our executive director for the National Veterans Chamber of Commerce. He's created this show. We have had wonderful guests throughout the years on this show. And thank you, Joe, for all that you do for our veteran community. We appreciate it. And Dolly Rivera, who is actually our co-host. She hosts shows when I'm not able to host. So Dolly, I want to give you a shout out too. And I want to welcome all of our podcast listeners, subscribers, and just be sure that again, click that bell so that you can hear all of the episodes that are coming up, and make sure that you can have access to these shows because we have amazing guests. And my guest today is he's a military veteran, and he served in the U.S. Army. So let me tell you a little bit about him. So my guest today is Chuck Kennenbush, and he is a Vistage Chair, executive coach, peer advisory leader. He's a keynote speaker, a consultant, and he just wrote his best-selling book, his Amazon best-selling book. We'll talk about that. And I want to bring Chuck on. And Chuck, how are you? How are you doing?
Doing wonderful.
I'm doing good. Yeah, well, we're happy to have you here at the radio show, and I'd love to kind of get into, number one, you've got so much experience as the ops guy. That's how a lot of people have regarded you as the ops guy. So let's talk about that and your background, how you started your company.
Well, in 2018, I retired from Lazy Boy. I'd spent 28 years there working in all sorts of different operations. I mean, always focusing and trying to help out what I would call operations, which I mean, I started out in IT, which not generally operations, but even the programming I did was all for manufacturing or for logistics. I went on to quality, I went on to materials management, worked on in project management, logistics, and then kind of did a lot of years in production management. And
Yeah.
I kind of ended my career implementing an ERP system, which really was all about the operations processes, and that's kind
Yeah.
of why I was selected for that project.
Yeah, and as far as, operations, it really relates to your book. And your book, which I know I have a copy of it, and it is called Hope is Not a Business Strategy: How to Take Control of Your Business So It Won't Take Control of You. I would imagine that your previous work, your role at Lazy Boy really kind of influenced you to write this book. But what was the kind of the leading uh, factor that helped you to write this book?
Well, I mean, you talk to so many small businesses. I mean, we interact with small business every day, every one of us, and the interaction is so smooth, so amazing. You're like, wow, the you know, they're just a great company to work with. My wife, we had
Yeah.
an HVAC people come in and they put on little booties before they walked in my wife's house, and she was all excited because they didn't bring in any dirt. But then
Oh,
you work with another company that it's like they can't get anything right except finally the service or the final product that they deliver. But everything
yeah,
up until then creates pain for you, the customer, or for them, the business owner. And you're like, there's an easier way, if just sit back, get out of the business for a second and work on it. And
yeah.
it's amazing how just a minor little change can go ahead absolutely redo a whole business.
Oh, absolutely. It could have big impact. And, and one thing that I do want to mention, thank you so much, Chuck, for your service. I know you served 7 years in the Army and then also 2 years in the National Guard. So we appreciate that service and we
Well, thank
salute
you.
you.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you, Shelley.
Thank you. Thank you. And I have to say that I have the pleasure of working with you. So that's another thing that I'm very grateful for. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So as far as you took a road trip, and I wanted to find out your keynote likens running a business to a cross country road trip. What's the biggest leadership lesson you've learned from the open road analogy?
Well, realistically, it's not just one. I mean, there's three major components to business or even planning a trip, and it's planning, it's leadership, and it's execution. And
Mhm.
really, if you don't have all three, something's going to go wrong. So, and you can
Yeah.
expect that. So I mean, you have to plan whether it's a road trip. Hey, what snacks do I need to take? Where am I going to go ahead and get gas? Which direction do I want to go ahead and go?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just some basic planning. And then leadership. Who's going to drive? I mean, who's going to grab that steering wheel and say, we're off and watch the speedometer and the other
Yeah.
performance metrics? And finally, how are you going to go ahead and execute? You've got to
Right.
be watching that gas gauge to make sure you don't hit empty while you're going down the interstate because
Exactly. Yeah.
not real easy to go ahead and get gas when you're on the interstate.
Well, that's right. That's right. And I can think of a few road trips I've taken with my family where we kind of panicked because there wasn't a gas station within miles and we needed it. I think a
Absolutely.
lot of people can relate to that in their families. Yeah, and I know as far as just your background in operations, and there's a story that someone had shared with me about you with your fascination with Disneyland. But when I found out what the fascination was, it made sense that you're the operations guy. So can you share a little bit about that? And you know what I mean.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
And I know exactly who shared it with you. Um, a lot of years ago, I had the opportunity to go. Disney was going out to various chambers of commerce, and they might have a half day or a full day session. And I got a chance to do a half day session.
Mhm.
And what fascinated me is they said, we prepare for problems, we create contingencies. And we're like, what are you talking about? And the Disney Institute person who was there who said, well, if you forget because you're excited, you go in, you park, our lots are many, many acres in size. You go
Yeah,
running in with those kids, you come back out and you don't know where you parked. I mean, you could be out there for hours,
that's
days,
right.
all night. But they said, if you could tell us about what time you park, we can get you within 10 cars, which was
Oh,
amazing. They said, and it happens, if you left your key in the ignition and the ignition running when you jumped out, locked your car, and ran off to the park with those kids, they said, they usually hide 1 gallon cans of gas. So they can give you enough gas to get you to the closest gas station and fill
oh,
up.
yeah.
Because for them, it's all about the customer. While mom and dad may be going to take the kids,
Mhm.
mom and dad have a bad experience. They're not going to want to take the kids again. So
Yeah,
Disney understands that their customer, well, it may be the kids, it may also be mom and dad, and they want to make sure that mom and dad don't have a bad experience at the end of the day.
yeah. Yeah, and I think it's just fascinating when you think, it's not necessarily the rides or, the people that are dressed up in the costumes. It was the parking lot that was fascinating too, and it was all operational, right?
It is. I mean,
Yeah.
I love going to an airport and seeing 5S in action.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's the operational things that kind of pique my interest, and I kind of say, I want to know more.
Mhm. Kind of it's very intriguing to
It
learn.
is.
Yeah, especially when the general public doesn't really know, what the kind of the system is behind the scenes.
Well, I mean, those are things that we, the general public, or the customer, or the consumer, shouldn't have to know. And
Right.
isn't that true about any business? I mean, what oils and greases the skids in any business is not necessarily stuff that the customer has to know about.
Exactly. Exactly. And I know your book. I'm very excited because I do have a copy. Let's talk a little bit about that because book is about, if you could kind of share with our audience, and I'm sure, they're curious to know, and you have a copy of it. So
I
I
do.
know, yeah. So if you can show that, there we go. So this book, what inspired you to write this book besides the idea that you love business?
Well, I was working with a business coach, and I encourage everybody to get out, find a business coach that works well with you,
Mhm.
because you don't understand what your blind side is until you get a perspective that's outside of yourself.
Yeah.
So I was working with a business coach, and this business coach said, "Well, if you write, just tell everybody you're going to write a book. That'll give you a certain authenticity. It'll give you a certain expertise." And I'm like, "Well, if I'm going to say I'm going to write a book, I'm going to write a book." So
Yeah.
I worked with the individual for about 3 months,
Mhm.
and he was fantastic. We worked longer than that, but for about 3 months, and I said, I think I'm ready. He said, I think you are too.
Mhm.
So over the next 3 months, I wrote the book. Found a phenomenal editor who helped me go ahead and rearrange the book into
Yeah.
a little bit better and easier reading format. And then a phenomenal publishing strategist who helped me get it published on Amazon.
That's fantastic. Yeah, and I'm excited. I've read a little bit of it, but I haven't read enough to where, I want to finish it and really dive into it. But I want to congratulate you on your, Amazon bestseller, and the fact that you took that leap to write that book, even though your business, coach said, "Hey, write a book," but that wasn't something that you were even thinking about, right?
Well, I mean, there's just so many things that my 40 plus year career in operations, if I can help another small business out there, medium sized business, even a big corporate American type business, if I can help one business leader out there smooth out and get better results, it's absolutely worth it to me.
Yeah.
And this book isn't written to go ahead. I mean, you can go ahead and open it up to whatever chapter you want or whatever problem you're having. And that's kind of the way I wrote it. So you could find answers. You didn't have to read it cover to cover. And it gave
Yeah.
you very tangible, very pragmatic things that you can do to make changes in your business and make improvements.
Exactly. Yeah, and it is available on Amazon. And do you want to show the book again, Chuck? And that way
Absolutely.
people, yeah, so people can kind of check out the book. And I the last thing that I want to do, because I know we're kind of coming to the end of the show, but I would love to hear what advice you have for business owners with companies that you have worked with, where your clients. What do you recommend for businesses, especially going into 2025, a new year? There are a lot of moving parts in business. What do you recommend?
Well, well, Shelly, I mean, it kind of goes back to the same thing that I promote in my keynote. You
Mhm.
know, plan. Well, plan for next year. Plan for what could go right, but also plan for what could go wrong.
Mm,
Make sure you have the leadership in place. Step back, understand what leadership means to you and what you want to see out of your business, and
yeah,
then execute. Understand that, hey, when things aren't going right, make an adjustment. That's why you thought through everything while you were doing the planning. you know
right.
so execute is not do something that's locked in stone. It's okay, well, we're underperforming, let's go ahead and do something different. We're overperforming, let's do more of it.
Mhm. No, that is great advice. And we just showed your website, and how can people reach out to you so that our followers and subscribers know?
I mean, you can go to my website, which is 13ten.com, 1310.com. On there, you can go ahead and reach out. You can reach out to me at 1310 at earthlink.net. Um, or, call my business phone, 409-730-6258.
Fantastic. Well, I hope that we get people reaching out to you, because you are a wealth of knowledge when it comes to the operations of a business, and how to run a business, as well as, your military experience. And again, Chuck, we want to thank you for your service, and all the sacrifices that you made, and the contributions that you made as well. Yeah. So, thank you to our listeners, our followers, subscribers who have tuned in today. We want to thank you for being here. And we want to thank our executive director, Joseph Molina, for always making sure this show is top quality. And thank you so much for just being here today. So, everyone, have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.